Really quick, before we get started, if you are blessed by this ministry, if you're blessed by this platform, anything that I bring to the table, I ask you to partner with me via Patreon. Go to patreon.com/TruthSeekah and you unlock rewards, my entire discography of music, webinars, meditations, weekly hangouts, and so much more. Patreon.com/TruthSeekah. Go check it out.
Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? To a place to walk on troubled seas, faith to stand when I don't believe. I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come?
You are now locked into the TruthSeekah Podcast, streaming live at TruthSeekah.com, your source for spiritual and inspirational music, teachings, and media. This show is designed to help you grow in your walk with Christ and advance the kingdom of heaven. And now, your host, TruthSeekah.
What's up, folks? Welcome to the TruthSeekah Podcast. I'm your host, TruthSeekah. Excited to be with you again for another episode. Today, we're in for a treat. My guest is Sam Litrico. Sam, welcome to the podcast, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super privileged to be here.
Oh, it was great to meet you. I met you, let's say a couple of weeks ago now at the Buckaroo at the Blue. You spoke and shared your story there, and I was like, man, this is such a inspiring story and encouraging. And I was like, man, I got to have you on the podcast. So here we are. So you want to talk a little bit about that night and the Buckaroo at the Blue experience?
Sure. It was wonderful. That was my first time actually in Sweet Home, Alabama. So pretty cool to be in the Deep South. And, the foundation itself is something that is very near and dear to my heart, simply because horse therapy is actually something that I had done when I was younger, and definitely something that my family and I, really appreciated, to give me the opportunity to, adapt physically and have opportunities available to me that I might not otherwise would have. So it was very cool to give back to the community and just share a little bit of my story.
Yeah, it was awesome night. The Buckaroo Foundation put that on, and for people who don't know, it's part of the Buckaroo Barn. They do hippotherapy essentially and physical therapy for children on horseback, which is a bonus, and it's amazing how it works. And my wife is a general manager of the Buckaroo Barn, so it's something they do every year to try to raise money and help kids be able to pay their bills when the insurance won't cover it and stuff like that. And Sam came out and shared her story and did some motivational speaking, and it was amazing. So yeah, here we are on the podcast. So you have you bring a lot to the table. You bring your personal story, which is inspiration. You bring how to overcome. You have like a step-by-step process of how you've overcome your own obstacles and are continuing to overcome them. That's something that's amazing, but also your walk with Christ and your faith in Jesus, that is a inspiring part of your story as well. So I don't know where you want to start with it. You just want to start maybe by opening up your story from the beginning and just let people know your background and what you do and where you came from, all that good stuff. We can start there.
Sure. Thanks. I appreciate it. So I like to say now, I walk a little weird because I do have cerebral palsy, but now I walk with Jesus, and that's made a tremendous difference in my journey. So to start, though, I guess, we'll start at the beginning, to say that having cerebral palsy it hasn't always been easy. It's kind of hard, and it hurts. And I think hopefully that will capture some people's attention, because we all have different struggles. They just tend to manifest themselves differently. So for some people, those struggles, they are predominantly physical, and we can actually see the manifestations of them. For some, those struggles are more health related or relational or financial. or internal through anxiety or depression. So we all have, a unique battle to fight, and it's truly what we do with our circumstances that makes a world of difference. But to start, it wasn't always a pretty picture. I would say when I was younger, before the age of 10, I was very driven, very ambitious, still am. I didn't really think that I had a problem. And I was like, you know what? Whatever other folks in this world are going to do, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it better. Like, I'm very competitive in nature. And so I did theater and performing on stage. I did gymnastics, even with a spot, even though it looked weird. So I was just hell-bent on the idea of being like as normal as possible. So I would say it wasn't until maybe the age of 10, 11 or so, I started to really filter in the white noise of everybody else's opinions and their judgments and their stares and looking at me funny. And I was like, you know what, never mind. I changed my mind. I don't want this particular body and this particular life. This is a nice trial run, right? So I, ended up really struggling, I would say, in my teenage years a lot, like with self-image and just perception of other people, hung out with the wrong crowd. I was a very rebellious teen because I really wanted to try to create a different problem than the one that was presented to me. And I had to learn through trial and error, okay, like I'm actually not going to get in a different body here on the weekend. So if I'm not going to be able to change it, I need to really change the way that I think about it. But that's just kind of the beginning stages of the journey, is just like really struggling with wondering why. And it isn't until my 20s and 30s, as I really learned to grow with the Lord, that I could give it such greater power and meaning in my life, beyond just what it looks like to the world.
That's awesome. And that's a long ways to go, because I mean, we could just jump right into it. There's the idea, especially being from a Christian background, and we read these stories about Jesus like healing everybody and stuff. And then, prayer and stuff. And why isn't Jesus healing me? Why aren't my legs working right? Why am I different? When am I going to get healed? And this idea of that it's something that you maybe even need to be healed of or something. Can you talk about just that whole struggle of, I mean, everybody feels it from one way or another. Like you said, these different obstacles, some you could just see, if everybody can see it, versus the stuff that we don't see, the addiction, the self-image, all of those other things that people couldn't see going on in your life that obviously he has healed you of. Can we just talk about healing and that aspect a little bit?
And how I guess I do my best to explain the impact of cerebral palsy. I often, at least my perception is, at times people have looked at me from the outside and said, wow, Sam, your life must be so difficult because you struggle to walk. I mean, granted, I am very wildly independent. I drive, live on my own, do all the things. But because people can physically see it, I think there's perception that it just must be so difficult. So the hardest part of cerebral palsy that I've had to learn to really heal from is other people's perceptions about it, how they respond to it, and learning to respond to it like in a tactful way with grace, for others and also for myself. And the way I look at it is, it's, if we were to get biblical for a second, it's like cerebral palsy, it's my 5 loaves. It's what I was given. So it's my responsibility to take what I was given with my physical body and every other aspect of my life and make the most of it. So to think that it's less than somebody else when it's just what I have and what I was particularly given can be very difficult to try to explain to other people. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's just, again, the thing on the outside, that people identify and see that makes you different. And then you have one of the things I've been saying a lot lately is like, the people outside of you, they can't tell you anything that you probably that you haven't told yourself already, or that inner critic, or we call it the devil, the ego, that things that are telling you these things. And, once you're at peace with yourself and peace with God, like nobody outside of you, nothing outside of you can can harm you or dictate the way you feel, somebody's opinion of you. And that's very hard. That's one of the hardest things to get over, is like the acceptance and how will people, judge me? What are they going to think about me? If I share my faith, if I don't share my faith, if I'm too Christian, if I'm too this, too that, and, being able to shut that voice up is spiritual warfare, and it's a big deal.
And to that point, I think that, somebody doesn't have to have a physical disability to struggle with that idea of self-image and what other people are thinking. To some extent, we all struggle with that and are curious about what other people are thinking about us. And we waste so much time and so much energy concerned about other people, while at the same time, they're literally doing the exact same thing. So to be able to break free from that and get to a place of true self-alignment and acceptance is so key, to be able to learn to filter out all that white noise and the things that we really can't change. And I think that the number one thing that can contribute to being able to do that, which was fundamental for me in my transition in my 20s, was being able to find passions and things that I really, really enjoyed doing. So it didn't matter if other people were watching me or what they thought about how I walked, because I loved being on stage and I loved performing. I also loved the job that I was a part of and being in a sales community. So when we find things that we love, then we're aligned for ourselves and not based on other people.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be hard, for anybody, dealing with that. But, I heard, speaking of coaching, and that's what you do and helping people, there was someone that I heard, Tony Robbins, who's a coach, right? And he talked about anytime that he launches a new program or a new offer or something, he still gets that voice of what we call the inner critic that's saying, nah, nobody's going to like it. This is going to fail, and people are going to judge you, and this is not going to do good. He still deals with that voice or whatever that, people assume when they see you on stage or see you shining, like you don't struggle, or yeah, I used to struggle, versus yeah, but we still do. Like, it never goes away. We kind of learn tactics on how to quiet that voice or focus on what I'll say, the voice of Jesus, the voice of truth, the voice of love that's there speaking at the same time, which is that voice that's in your corner saying, no, you got this. I created you to do great things. This is your time. Go out there and do it better than them, kind of thing. And, when you find out what you were created to do, and you do it, man, people come from all over the world to watch you do it. And it's so encouraging. So that's encouraging to know that, hey, these great names who've got it all together, they still go through this process of doubt and loathing and maybe I should back out, or they're all going to laugh at me again, kind of thing.
Yeah, I would completely. One of the things actually that Tony Robbins says that I love when he is talking about fear is exactly what you said. Not the idea that fear is ever going to go away, but that we learn to manage it better and actually just dance with the fear. So if we know that it's there and it's going to exist, how do we build strategies and tactics in our own mind with the power of our thoughts and the systems and processes that we create for our habits to work around those tendencies, instead of hoping that one day we wake up and, that habit that we want to break is just going to disappear. It's no, how do I become stronger? How do I build up a defense around this particular tendency that I have to actually work through it? Mm-hmm. For sure.
And, you talk a lot about self-sabotage, like not being able to identify those things and get real with it in your life. Does that kind of set up more obstacles for you to keep tripping over the same, self-sabotage and keep stumbling and stuff like that? Like, how does that show itself to people when it comes to self-sabotage, or is that even connected?
There's actually a great book I'd love to recommend. It's called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. I'm not sure if you've read it, but he talks about something called our upper limit, which is that we have essentially a predisposed idea of how much success we believe that we're capable of or worthy of having. And what happens is in our lives, when we grow and we expand and we actually push and break through that limit, we can have these barriers and limiting beliefs that prevent us from breaking through. So I think there are four. From what I remember right now off the top of my head, some being like, hey, I'm not good enough, like I don't deserve this success. Another one is like, because of my family roots, like I don't feel like I can. Another one is like, I don't want to outshine people. So it's almost like this fear of being like too good and making other people uncomfortable. It's a really cool book to better understand yourself and what your internal like self-sabotage might be around what could be preventing you from breaking through to that next level of success. And then he talks about some strategies for overcoming that. So I always recommend it to a lot of my
Yeah,
clients.
I've
Yeah.
heard of it. I haven't read it. Is that something that's helped you, or like have you been able to identify the different things in your life with that you were self-sabotaging? Do you think everyone does it?
Yeah, I think everybody does it to an extent. And again, it just sort of manifests differently, maybe based on tendencies, based on environment, how we were raised, what we believe. Like we all have some form of a limiting belief, typically, or what's called a cognitive bias that we can hold over ourselves, over circumstances, over relationships. And we build these cognitive biases often on our experiences and what has happened in the past. And so we say, because it's always been this way, this is how it's always going to be, instead of believing that things can ever be better than they were.
Yeah, that's good. Um, so for you, where does faith play in all of this? Because like as we're talking about this stuff, it's for me like it's always the answer. Like it just, but people get to the answer in different ways. It takes faith or belief in something, right? Or the belief that you can. But I think in a relationship with Jesus, again, this was like he's like the best coach ever. Like he's literally the best life coach. Like, I mean, come on, he's in your corner. You got this, man. And hey, I know you messed up, but you're gonna be okay. Give it another shot, kind of thing. And I created you for greatness. Like literally, that's when you read the scriptures and when you're praying. Like he's in your corner. Doing all that. So I know it's applicable for us in faith, right? I mean, the lines of the psychology, it's there. If that's what you use your faith for, because I mean, on the other hand, there are, traditions and religions and even Christian denominations that he's not cheering you on. He's actually, telling you to suffer and those kind of things. And I mean, that's their interpretation, but where does that play in for you and for others, and just that line in between? Because it does for me. I could 1,000%, but I can see it in other people too. Like the good things in life come from God for me.
Totally. Well, I want to give Jesus all the credit and all the glory. I wouldn't be the person that I am today if it wasn't for my walk with Jesus. And I truly believe that with every fiber of my being, because as I reflect on my childhood and those difficulties of cerebral palsy and then some rebellious teenage years, like how God used so many different tools of prevention and protection in my circle of influence in my 20s that then introduced me and launched me into kind of a life of ministry. So what ended up happening is when I turned 18, this is when my life got what I would consider pretty awesome. My first job was with a company called Cutco Cutlery. I don't know if you're familiar. You know those really sharp kitchen knives?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So I worked with them as a college student. I was a sales rep. I had worked my way into management, so I learned a lot about sales and recruiting and people development and culture. And I was there for 13 years. So a big bulk of my professional experience came through this company. And the trajectory and path that this put me on was amazing because I was around really solid people as far as just focused on personal growth and development. We were really infused with it at a young age, learning some great skills, traveling the world. And so I had a friend, my best friend Grace, shout out to her. We met when I was about 23. And at the time, I considered her one of those, Jesus freaks. Like I didn't really understand what the vibe was, what the hype was. but through our friendship and seeing how it had transformed and influenced her life, that certainly influenced me a lot. And then I had a manager that I worked with in this company for over 10 years. His sister invited me to the church I now attend, and it's been over 8 years. So I'm 33 now. I came to Christ when I was 25. And I would say one of the very first things that got my attention, so I'm just visiting this church because my friend invited me. So I'm like, okay, I'll go. And I see this testimonial video on the screen, and it's for a service opportunity through what's called Steadfast Ministries. And a facet of what they do is provide mentoring for youth, young girls in the juvenile detention centers. So they've been incarcerated. And I kid you not, Derek, I remember I had a thought. I was like, I don't really know this Jesus guy, but you know what? I really love supporting young women. This is something I have a heart and a passion for. I got to do it. And so I spent about 3 or 4 years in this ministry. And what you would do is you would go and meet with these girls once a week, literally in their time in prison, and just love on them. And as I reflect on that experience, it taught me so much in this relationship dynamic about what it means to love someone unconditionally. Because we were not given like a checklist of all her, wrongdoings and all of her sins.
Mm.
I didn't know anything about her background. I was just told to go and love her and spend time with her. And I recognized through that relationship that I built over several years, I was like, wow, I don't handle a lot of my other relationships like this with this level of grace or unconditional love. Like, this is really cool.
Yeah.
So developing that heart for service is how God first initially got my attention. And then from there, I think he really developed in me a heart to learn how to pray and how to speak with him. So then I began reading some books on prayer, testing it out, like getting on my knees and beginning to pray, and then seeing through those prayers that God was manifesting and answering my prayers. Then he really grew my hunger for the word, and through better understanding of the word, then I began to really look inward at myself and my own conduct and wanting to align myself with God, and I would say the rest is history. So I'm so appreciative of how God moves and works in our life to, not necessarily call out everything about us that sucks all at one time. At the right season and the right way, he's going to call out what we're ready for to help us grow closer with him.
Yeah.
And it's just been such a beautiful, beautiful journey.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I don't like to use this word because people don't understand it. I like to play the devil's advocate, just to kind of like play both sides. That's how you get clarity, right? You ask questions and on both sides. So, how do you think psychology works, if it does, right? In the aspect of prayer, and it could be, and I wanted to ask you this, but then you said something that kind of answered this question. You said aligning myself with Christ, with God. I found that I was aligning myself. This idea of when we pray, we're like activating or trying to align ourselves, whether it's we're speaking it out. There's power in the spoken word. There's belief, and then there's activation when we say it. Is there some deeper modes of like what's going on in the psyche, maybe even spiritually around you when you pray, kind of thing? Can we dive into that at all? If you thought any, do those two worlds go together for you, because you're in both of them, right?
Sure. I mean, I think initially, right? Okay, so let's look at this through the lens of maybe somebody that is newer to Christ or not even a believer. It's kind of like, wait a minute, I'm going to like talk out loud to this like random being. Like, that seems weird. Or if God knows my thoughts, why do I have to say it out loud? As I work in ministry, and just hearing these typical thoughts or questions, or in our human psychology and minds, right? We like control. We don't want to have to rely on a God. We want to just get it done ourselves. So I think there is that tendency and resistance to full surrender. Like, what full surrender? That's really hard. And so to bridge that gap, I think the greatest gift that I have learned through really growing with Christ in prayer is, what does it mean and what does it look like for me to profess with my mouth weaknesses, difficulties, and hardships? So for example, specifically around cerebral palsy, Like it was like wrestling an alligator to the ground at first, but I was like, okay, God, as I'm reading your word and we're looking at, let's say, like Psalms 139, which is all about how God, his workmanship is marvelous. He made us this way. And I remember praying with him and being like, okay, dude, if you're for real and you really designed me this way and you allowed for my body to have this particular challenge and you're saying that it's your design and that you love me anyway, well, I'm going to come to you and I'm going to tell you right now how much this sucks, how hard it is, like how unfair, and I'm giving it to you, okay, for the first time in my life, and I'm not going to negotiate anymore, and I'm not going to try to create a different problem instead. I'm just going to trust you, and I'm going to believe that you're going to do something with this for your glory. Like just like the word tells us to do. I was like, okay, I'm going to take him at his word. I'm going to try it. And I'm telling you, when I really actually began to pray those kinds of bold prayers with my weaknesses, woo, that's when I really started to see God really show up and show off in my life and bring things to me like beyond what I could have imagined. So I just submit to anybody listening, like even if your difficulty or circumstance isn't cerebral palsy, how do you take your struggle and with your mouth submit it to God and see what he can do with it? Because it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, it works. It works. When we can identify the lie, of what, that you're not worthy, that you're broken, and maybe we are, right? We definitely we got a lot of issues going on, but we can give it, when we can identify it and then give it to God, like, yeah, I don't like this about me. I don't like this character flaws, right? And maybe even for you, like, again, when stuff's on the outside, people, that's the one thing that you see, yeah, I'm going to give you this, disability, my cerebral palsy or whatever the case is. It's like, hold on, let me give you like what's in me. There's like, I'm mad at you, God. Like, I got, how, like, you got to give it all to me. Can I, and maybe people don't see that. They don't see, like, on the outside, you seem like everything's okay. But the anger, the resentment, the self-worth, all of these things that we can, it doesn't even care what people see or don't see, but these are the things that God values, right? It's in the secret place of prayer that we can bring the secret things of our heart and give them to God, and he receives them. He takes them and he makes all things new, and he loves for us to be honest with them, and it's not really until you're able to be honest with God too, you'll see breakthrough, really. I've heard so many stories and testimonies. I mean, even of people, it was always a taboo. I've heard people say, I cursed God out, man, in prayer. I just told him how I felt. And I've heard several testimonies, and then afterwards, God's like, okay, now I'm finally, you're opening up with me, kind of thing, now we got that out the way. I'm glad you gave it to me. Now let's talk, kind of thing. It's like, why weren't you being real and honest with me before, and we could just be open with our fears, with our failures, but also with the good things too, not just one or the other. Sometimes it seems like we can give God, or we need God when everything sucks or whatever, like, we're called, God, where you at? Help me here. But then when everything is going good, it's like, yeah, you're not praying as much, and you got everything going good, and you can handle it on your own. You're doing a great job, and you don't need me. But it's to have both, right? We can bring our failures, we can bring our insecurities, but also to be thankful and to look for the blessings and gratitude, like in every moment. And maybe where there's a crossroad where the two meet, to even look at those things that we thought that counted us out. They were not these things that discounted you or were disabilities, but they were things that actually enabled you and, gave you purpose. In your pain, there was purpose. And he takes it and uses it for his glory. Like, it's like, whatever it is, can you take this and this, God? It's all I got. It's like, yeah, I can use it. Watch this.
Totally. Like, what really resonates with me of what you just said was the value of honesty. Like, that is really all that God wants from us, is to be honest. He doesn't expect us to be perfect. He doesn't expect us to be sinless, because that's why Jesus came. He just wants us to be real. And I think that there is a misconception, or maybe those that are farther away from faith, I think that there's like a certain special way that you're like supposed to approach God, or like a certain way that you need to pray to make sure that he hears you. And yeah, like there are some like cool tools that can help with effective prayer, but really he just wants us to get real. And I found that the more honest that I am, like even when I suck and I'm like, hey guys, I just want to be real with you about my heart posture right now, and maybe my motivation behind wanting to do something. Maybe this is wrong. I apologize. I just want to be real with you about what's going on, and like convict me. And like in being that real, like in being that humble, or trying to be, I think I found more clarity and direction from God that way. So just want to encourage everybody to be honest, and not even just with God. I think that also reflects in our relationships too. The more honest that we become with God, the easier it then becomes to be honest in our relationships as well, and communicate with the people in our lives that we love, like what we're thinking, what we're feeling, what we're needing, and making sure that expectations are met. So,
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's, real, it has real world applications. It's just not, some fantasy stuff. So there is psychology. There's beautiful psychology to it, because it's working on your character, your character flaws and character defects, and allowing you to see it, but not to put you down. It's this thing of like to put you down and show you how not good you are. It's like, and I'll tell you this, like with the psychology, I don't think that it's even God like telling us this. I think that when we're in the light, like closer to Jesus, then we naturally see the things that are those defects or whatever, like, because we want to be like him. We want to love like him. We want to treat other people like him. We want to treat other people like he treats us. It's the least we can do, right? If he forgave me, help me to forgive others. If help me to forgive myself. These kind of things, that it's his character that is merging with ours, because we're being transformed into the character or the person of Christ. Like slowly but surely, we're being molded into his image. And, I always like the term, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. It's like, hey, he's my best friend. Like I've been hanging out with him. And so hopefully I'll be, loving like him and forgiving like him, and, showing grace like he does to those who don't deserve it. And maybe I'll accept myself even when I don't like myself, because he does. Like, so crazy. I love it though.
yeah. I think that the more that we grow close with him, and that we spend time through prayer, right? And you actually get to, and the word, and you kind of simultaneously work through both of those disciplines or practices, then you do get a better understanding of his character, who he is, and how he behaves. And then it does create that desire to want to be better, like out of love and respect for God. Like it isn't like a works thing where like, oh, I have to do this in order to like get into heaven. I think as sometimes theology can, I don't know, make some believe that it is about works. No, it's receiving what's already been done. But I think that there is a stronger desire to say, you know what, I actually like want to do what pleases God now, because like I feel like I have a superpower inside of me and over my life. So why would I not want to align with that at this point?
Yeah. Yeah, especially when you can, like, you can just look, like, because Jesus is what's available. He showed us how to do life. He just did, and so if we're doing it like at this level, but there's so much more, so much greater. It's like, I want to do it like that. And so to identify it in ourselves, not condemningly, because he doesn't condemn you. You condemn yourself. The enemy condemns you. But he's hope and grace, and he works with you and holds your hand through the process to show you what's available. It's just the best thing ever, but it's, it is being content where you are, and just being okay, but still wanting more. It is a weird dichotomy I always talk about. Like, as far as goals and dreams and money and influence and all those kind of things. And it's like, listen, be okay where you are now, but know that there's more. It's so weird because in the rat race or whatever, you're always chasing the next best thing, which is what the world does. And they teach us how to do that. And, but for us, it's like godliness with contentment is great gain. Even though there is more, even though he's working things out of you, you're in a process and you're going to do amazing things. Your story's not over. You're going to see the world, all of these awesome things, but it's a strange dichotomy but it is relationship, to be content with what you have and where you are, in your body, the way it is, make the best of it. And, versus, the rat race.
Yeah. We do live in such a world today, I think, that makes us believe that we're supposed to be achieving, right? We're supposed to get to that next rung on the ladder. We're supposed to be doing more. And it's like, hey, once we get the house, then we'll be happy.
Mm-hmm.
Once we get the relationship, we'll be happy. Once we get more money, we'll be happy. That is the, I think, lens, right, of the world is just more or do or achieve. And that's something that I had to reconcile and work through with God, because I was in a sales and recruiting type field for over 10 years. So I liked performance, and so learning how to surrender that and say, hey, you know what? God already knows, and he's seen the end of my life, and reaching this peace to say, you know what, whatever I have access to right now, in terms of what I know, in terms of my resources, in terms of my ability, that's exactly what I'm supposed to have. And when and if God wants me to have access to more, well, I can certainly ask for it, but he's going to give me exactly what I need when I need it. And I think that's helpful to kind of release this idea that we're supposed to know how it all turns out, right? He really wants us to be present. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what he says, in the word.
Yeah, it's the process. I think a lot of times in prayer we treat or just think it's just in us for some reason. We think we could pray for something, and then it immediately happens. Boom, there it is, like a magical genie. Oh, you found it. Here, there's the money deposited into your bank account. There's this going on you asked for. But a lot of times I feel like it kickstarts a process, of God, teach me to forgive, or make me like you, or whatever. And it's oh, that's what you want. It's I want him to instantly do it. Give me his spirit and give me more of your spirit and make me like you. But he puts you through, situations, and he gives you opportunities. Say put you through. No, that's an opportunity, for you to become, because in that pressure, in that trial, the trial creates character and perseverance, and that's how he works, and then to be thankful for it, be mindful of it, hey, this may be an answer to prayer that you're going through, that you asked for this, you asked for that, but you thought it was going to come a different way. You'll still get the results, but it's not as, simple as maybe you thought. It's just the process that God, has us in, the refining process that is, I think it's engaged or enabled or discovered in prayer,
Yeah, I absolutely love what you're saying right now, because this is something I feel like has really been impressed upon me, in this season, where let's say we go to God, right, and we ask for his help in removing some sort of habit or tendency that we might have. And when that habit, right, or tendency doesn't just go away, we can often lose faith and be well, God, I still have this temptation or tendency. Do you hear me? What's going on? And I there's this wisdom or understanding, I feel that's been given to me to say that when I ask God to help me improve something about myself, do you know what's going to happen at first? I'm actually going to experience more of that issue and problem, so that he can bring me to a sense of awareness to say wow, I actually do need to get better at this issue. And every single time that he brings it up again in my path, even though I prayed for him to take it away, it's an opportunity for me to make a different choice to actually improve at the problem. Like
Yep.
it doesn't just go away. He's saying, hey, I'd like to partner with you and I'd like to help you improve in this problem. So I'm going to have it show up in your life again and again. And when you choose to partner with me on this, we're going to make some serious moves. And I think sometimes in our lives, like we can miss that because that's not, that's not the short, easy, quick fix. Like we actually have to walk it out. But
That's it. Um, we used to like when we was in the youth group and stuff years ago. They'd tell. I remember hearing little things. I don't know if it was a pastor or somebody said it, and then other people repeated it. But it was like, never pray for patience, never ask God for patience because then He'll make you wait. And it was like this weird, like, oh yeah, like a law, like yeah, make sure whatever you do, don't. Because God will make you wait on things longer because you said it or something. It was this weird thing, but it's still the idea that, when you pray and you ask for it, that something is gonna show itself to you, that is going to be the thing that is carrying the thing you asked for. The patience that you're asking for is in this trial. It's in the victory on the other side of that mountain. Speak to the mountain to be removed, but we could do that. We have the power, but we see mountains in front of us and we get overwhelmed and scared, not knowing that there's an opportunity to show somebody that, hey, we can speak to these things, and that's not a mountain, not anymore. Yeah. That's not a giant. That's not this. That's not that. All of these things are opportunities, shortcomings, all of it, to honor God, to honor Him in it, and to give it to Him. That's always been the easiest solution. I'd say it's a sure shot. Like, you don't like it, give it to Him. You do like it, give it to Him. Just give Him everything. But definitely with like trials, tribulations, temptations, because when you become aware of it, the defect, the character flaw, whatever, then you're like, oh, I'm still doing this. Here, God, I give it to you. Catch yourself in it. That was one thing, talking about struggles, like people not understanding why God won't take it away, or whatever you think is your defect, that most people don't even know what goes on in your mind, right? They deal with something similar, but it's the stuff they can't see again. But to give it to God, to catch yourself in it, become aware of it, and say, oh, I'm gonna give it to you. And praying and God don't take it away. Thought He was going to magically, boom, it's gone. I mean, that's what we think. We watch too many shows. I Dream of Jeannie and all these other shows. Like, it's like magic. You prayed and it's gone. And listen, sometimes it happens like that. It does. But most of the time, He's going to give you an opportunity. There's going to be a step of faith. There's going to be something that you can bring or exchange, if you will. He like in the scriptures, it talks about how He'll give you a garment of praise. But it says that you already have a garment. It's a garment of heaviness. Like, how about I'm going to exchange it with you? I'm going to give you this one to receive those new clothing, right? This other thing that I can clothe myself with. I'm going to exchange it out. And that's how it works. People just think that it's going to, we're not robots. Like it's tangible. Like you can actually give that thing to God. He doesn't want robots to worship Him, but do it as a service, as an act of worship. That's what's, once you find that out, it's like, man, I'm praying that God will take these struggles and temptations away. He won't take them away. He's giving you an opportunity that when you find yourself being led away by your own desires, by your own humanity, that you're going to sin again or whatever, catch yourself in that moment and literally say, God, I want you more than I want this thing. I love you more than I hate myself. I love you more than I hate others. Whatever the case is, catch yourself in it and give it to God. Once you learn to do that and you get good at it, then He'll start showing you deeper things. That, okay, you gave me that, cool. Now can I have your heart? You gave me your past. Great. Yeah, I died for your sins. Yes, you gave me your past, but can I have your future? Can I have your now? Yeah, okay. Learn how to give him our present moment. Learn how to, ideas of what could be or what might have been. Give him those things. Everything, all of our imagination, our mind, our will, and our emotions, to continually bring it to him. It's such a process. And, I say we get better at it. You never conquer it, but it's part of the process. And once you realize that, I think you can, you'll be able to help yourself find breakthrough in like just searching what we can give him. What can I give you, Lord, that you don't already have? Your anger issues. Okay. You can have that, Lord.
Yeah, I think in addition to the struggle and the weakness component, so that he can help to refine and improve it, I also just have on my heart to say, like, releasing expectations of the way of which things should go and how exactly it's supposed to look. Because in our human tendency, right, we pray a prayer and we may have this grand vision for what it's going to look like, who it's going to involve, and on our timeline too. So I think this is where in our humanity we can struggle, because it's like, wait, God, you're taking longer than like we talked about. So what are you doing? Or it's like, wait a minute. You're not involving the people that I put in my script. What are you doing? And so I think there is a release of, especially in this season, I'm learning as I, prayed for certain outcomes, I've realized that God has literally answered every single one of my precious prayers. The thing is, though, he didn't do it on my timeline. And he did not use the people that I thought that he was going to use. Did I still eventually get my needs or expectations met? Yes. But it was harder to recognize at first because it didn't align with my script or the way that I thought it should go. And there was a lot of grief. And I think I hope people listening to this in your own way, situations, relationships, you may be able to relate to that, where it's like you get your hopes up for things going a certain way and it doesn't. But when we learn to release that, and so that's what I've started to do, and my prayer with my mouth is, God, I give you my expectations, I give you these relationships, I give you these outcomes, and just do with it what you will. And it's like he still finds a way to make sure that my need is met, even if it looks different than I expected. And as the scripture said, he can actually do exceedingly abundantly beyond what we could ask or think.
Yeah.
Even if it looks different.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to recognize that is so key, I think, to finding fulfillment in and through the Lord.
Yeah, that's good. It really helps us to, deal with the, I won't say the perfectionist, but wanting to control everything, wanting to like you said, let go of the expectation of the outcome. Like, no, it has to be this. It has to look like this. It has to look like that. And then God, it's a lot of times you already have the thing and God's like bringing it into your life and all that, but you can't identify it because you think it looks different. That's the big, man, you want to talk about how the spirit world works and angels and all this kind of stuff work. Listen, once you release the expectation that, an angel has to look a certain way, or God has to look a certain way, or a Christian has to look a certain way, you may be surprised and you may find yourself already around and engaging many of those things that you had no idea of, angels, other Christians, whatever the case is, people that God loves and he's using. That it's how he works. So yeah, you're 1,000% right. Releasing the expectation of how it's supposed to look like, and just trust him that if you look closely enough, you'll see that he's there and he's probably already answered those prayers. I talk about in the past, like working at a job or something that I knew it wasn't my calling. I'm like, I'm not made for this. I'm made for ministry or whatever the case is, and wanting something else and complaining about a job that I was at. It's like, Lord, I want to make music. I want to do these things. I want to travel. And I'm stuck working a dead end job and complaining about it. And but when you look at it, it's like, hold on, and the Lord had to remind me, you asked me for this job. on the last job you had, you were complaining about that one and you were asking for a better job that pays more, and you went out and put an application in. You were believing that you was going to get it. You got the job. And now you're here complaining about the thing that you prayed for, that you asked for. So looking at the circumstance, the situation, and say, hey, like, guess what? I'm not going to get, I know how God works. I've learned some things, and I know that I'm not getting another job. I'm not until I delight myself in him in the place that I'm at now. Find a way to worship, find a way to thank him for this opportunity, you know, and be present on the job, do my job as I'm doing it unto Christ, no matter, and this is job, whatever, wherever you are in life, seasons, it doesn't matter, but be present, be there, and take a deep breath and look for him in it. Look for a purpose, look for a reason. And if you can't find any, look deeper and you'll find something that he's teaching you, something that he's showing you. And it's usually in that moment that you can, you know, be released or pass the test or whatever the case is, that he wanted you just to be there and be mindful and just say thank you for the job he gave you or whatever he's working in you, you know?
Yeah, I think in that so something I struggle with a lot and still do is points of major decision, you know, and thinking like there is a correct path or choice. So to your point about the job, it's like I have to find the exact right job, the exact right situation before taking the action and making the choice, because I have to make sure I go down the right path. And if there's anything that I've learned about what it means to really walk with Jesus, is that I think God cares more about the orientation of our hearts and our character and who we are than what we do for work, what we even do for ministry, or how much money we make, any of those things. And so this like pressure that we put upon decisions on when we're in a fork in the road, it's like, you know what? You could choose either one, just depending on how you choose to walk the path is what really makes all the difference. Now, if God has like a certain specific path he definitely wants you to follow, he'll let you know. He's going to open the right doors that no man can shut. And if there's some door you're not supposed to walk through, then he's going to close that door. At least that's what I found in my life.
Yeah. There's a lot of wisdom in that. There really is. You know, I know people who, you know, have always wanted to do ministry, right? Or be in ministry, but their idea of what ministry is, you know, they're not doing it, you know? And then, so there's this, you know, maybe I've been overlooked, or why didn't God allow me to do it? Right. You know, having it to look a certain way. And I think I was there for, you know, some time early on until I understood, like, hey, my life is my ministry every day, where ministry is not something you clock in and out of and go get a paycheck. You know, talk about full-time ministry or something like that. Like, your ministry is your life. And when you wake up each morning and put your feet on the ground, your ministry starts. You clocked in. And when you start looking at it that, hey, I'm already in ministry, you know, then you go around ministering to people, because ministry is for ministers who go out and minister to people, and no matter where you are, because that's what you do. And it's like an overflow out of the abundance of your heart. So it's not like what, you know, this paycheck or being at a church or whatever the case is, which, you know, I thought that that's what, you know, my ministry would look like. And maybe even sometimes still in my head, it's still there. Like, it has to be a building, and you have to, you know, be a pastor at a church, versus like, man, I'm pastoring more people than can fit in a church, you know, the churches I've been to, you know, in the past, but it's there. You know, he's like, once you look at the thing differently, it's not something that you're going to become or going to do. Ministry is something that you are. Yeah. If you're a preacher, you preach out of the abundance. You don't preach because, hey, it's time to preach the sermon. Man, you're finding ways and finding people to to even just put a little seed, in the conversation and talk about God, and you're teaching people ways to handle their money and finances, teaching people how to worship prophets. You prophesy, you speak, you encourage people, you evangelize. This is something naturally that you begin to do. And if you're not doing that, I don't know if I want to sit under you as a preacher or teacher anyway, if that's just not coming out of you wherever you are, but it's being able to look at those things differently and see how, again, you're already you're not becoming, right? You already are. God's already placed those things, everything that you need within you. And there's a lot to stop wanting, stop feeling like you've been left out or looked over, and use the resources and the breath and the imagination and the creativity to preach, to teach, whatever. Use media, use podcasting, whatever you got. If you're not using that to honor God and to do whatever the ministry that is coming, it may not come. It's like, I'm just telling you, as far as how he works, you gotta, when God's looking for preachers or looking for whatever, and you're already doing it, yeah, give them an investment. Because who's gonna like promote or whatever to fulfill a need or a role? It's the person who's already doing it, who's already positioned themselves to be doing it.
Yeah, so good. I mean, you said something about gifts, and I think what's so special about the body of Christ and all of God's children is that he does give us all unique gifts and talents and abilities. And I feel that is like our responsibility, right? To be able to identify, hone, and leverage that particular gift that we were given, like for his glory, right? And for the sake of other people. In whatever capacity that looks in ministry. So maybe that is in a church, maybe it's a parachurch organization, maybe it's a nonprofit, maybe it's podcasting. I mean, I would say the opportunities for ministry are like unlimited, just like God's love and his capacity. And I think it's about representing him well. And so that's one of the things I really try to do in my prayers. Like before I even start my day, or anytime I have opportunities to speak, even before this podcast, my prayer is, God, help me to represent you well. Like, help me to give you all the credit and all the glory. And I think that hopefully like embodies what ministry is supposed to be, is just representing as best we can the characteristics of Jesus. Now, we can't be perfect because we're human, but we can do our best, and he can help us, right, to embody more of him in and through the lives of the people that we love. So
it's so good. It's so true. I enjoyed this conversation, Sam. It's been amazing. Let people know where they can go to find out more about your work if they want to work with you, because you are a coach. You are a speaker. You have a lot that you bring to the table. Let people know where they can find out more about your work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for the opportunity. This is super fun. Any chance I get to share a little bit of my story and hopefully inspire others, and how they can leverage their own experience and story for the highest and greatest good, is a beautiful thing. So as far as if you want to reach me, I guess you could go to my website, which is letyourlightshine.coach, or I'm pretty active on Facebook, so you can just look for Sam Litrico, reach out that way, and we can connect.
letyourlightshine.coach.
Yepers.
Heck yeah. And I will put a link to your site in the description here, wherever you're listening to this video, audio, wherever you're consuming your media, Facebook. I can't even start to name them because we're all over the place. But yeah, I enjoyed it so much. Thanks for coming on, hanging out with me. Again, I got to meet you and hear your story in person. And you was part of the Buckaroo Foundation, Buckaroo at the Blue fundraiser. It was amazing, and so it was great to hear your story there, meet you, and then you got to go out to the Buckaroo barn and meet the kids out there and see the horses and stuff.
Yeah, I'd never seen a donkey before, and I got to pet one, so that was pretty cool. That was a first.
Heck yeah. So cool. Well, we'll have to do this again, my friend. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank
Means the
you.
world. All right. Many blessings, Sam.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.